Hey everybody, and welcome back to Pixel Junkies podcast, episode 199. We're getting real close to episode 200. I am going to be your host today. My name is Adam, and today I am joined by two lovely, lovely co-hosts. One would be Mr. Andrew.
Oh, hey.
And the other is Mr. Aaron.
Hi.
And today we're, like with every podcast, we're just going to go through kind of a breakdown of some of the events and news items that happened in the kind of geeking, gamey, entertainment world, and we'll give our little thoughts on them. So I guess the first one we should do is probably the one that kind of explains why we're going to be why we're playing SWAT 4 today, which is the game that we're playing. SWAT 4 is getting a kind of spiritual successor. Now, if you don't know what SWAT 4 is, it was a kind of early 2000s, like 2003, 2004, around there, game where you played as a SWAT officer, and it was a tactical first-person shooter where you commanded a squad of SWAT officers, and you had to go into a building and clear out the bad guys, but it was very, very realistic. So, if you got shot in the leg, your speed is really reduced. You can't just go in and start shooting people. You have to try and take them alive and arrest them, and you have to try and secure hostages. The game gives you a lot of non-lethal options to be able to take down bad guys. It was as pretty much a simulator as a game could get, like a first-person shooter could get outside of something like Arma. A lot of people enjoyed it. I didn't as much, but I'm just not as into simulators as other people. But it was announced, I believe, today, or it could have been yesterday, that there is a new game coming out that's a spiritual successor to that game called Ready or Not. They released a 5-minute gameplay demo trailer on YouTube and onto different kind of media outlets, and so we watched it today. Aaron, because you're playing SWAT 4 right now, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think about the about this new game?
I'm very excited by it, interested. I think it was sort of like a 7-minute gameplay trailer that they showed, just showed out little gameplay facets and kind of what the game is about. And it is very much a successor to SWAT, it would seem, spiritual successor. So I really love the idea. Like me and Andrew did a special in SWAT 4 years ago at this point, and it does seem like a lot of the things we were talking about back then, almost like a pseudo open world SWAT game where you could go around, lead your team, and kind of expand upon the single player elements of it a bit. And that seems to be sort of what this game is doing. So I'm very interested in seeing what they do with it.
What about you, Andrew? What are your thoughts? I don't know if you're a fan of the original SWAT 4.
I'm a fan of the original SWAT 3.
I never
played
played
SWAT
that.
3 way back when it came out. When I was a little baby boy.
See,
I wasn't a baby.
I knew that there must have been previous SWAT games, but I've only ever seen anybody talk about SWAT 4, so I just assumed that the other games don't really exist anymore in any kind of form.
Well,
but,
SWAT 4, was the most recent one. It was the last one. So
yeah.
And I guess arguably it was the best one. But, SWAT 1 and 2 were top-down. They were isometric. So they were a little different.
Interesting.
By which I mean a lot different. But SWAT 3 was more along the lines
kind of like old
what?
GTA games, like GTA 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Like that okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything in this trailer looked really cool. I
did.
didn't get an open world vibe.
It's more of a sandbox vibe. Like each level is its own kind of not open world, but its own self-contained, sprawling sandbox. Kind of like how Hideo Kojima approaches, like stealth sections in Metal Gear Solid, where there's like multiple different paths that you can take and different strategies based on the gear that you bring and how you prepare.
SWAT 4 did that as well.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
and SWAT 3 did that.
I'm just trying to bring it more out of to something a bit more popular. That's kind of because SWAT 4 is a bit of a niche game.
Are you saying that the SWAT series is not popular?
Well, they haven't released a game since 2004. Most kids don't even know what it is.
They didn't have to because SWAT 4 was so popular.
They also went on to make BioShock, so they kind of fucked off with it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. One thing that I thought was very intriguing, and I'm surprised that more games don't do this. Even games like XCOM and those kind of tactical games is you could plan out operations before you do it. So they made reference to the fact that you can either go in with flashbangs in this one mission and just like complete, like rush the guys and try to take them by surprise, or you can cut the power to the building and sneak in under the cover of darkness.
Yeah, I thought
and
that was really cool.
I don't know if you could do that in the original SWAT game. I'm pretty sure you were just given what you can only just select the gear you had, and you didn't have really anything else.
Yeah, as far as I know, you couldn't cut power or stuff
maybe
like that. You could
maybe
do
in a
some
specific level.
things,
Oh shit!
but
Yeah, maybe in a specific level or something like that, but
Yeah.
definitely not every time. The only reason I got sort of an open world vibe from it, not that they didn't explicitly say that it was open world, but they did sort of allude to it being a city that's sort of corrupted by crime. It's not necessarily like a bunch of sort of separated things. It almost seems like different cases lead into the next one in some small way. And then there was also a sort of a short clip of the SWAT team driving to one of the locations in the back of the truck and then getting out and going into it. So
yeah, that looked either it looked like either a cutscene or a loading screen.
Maybe that might be the very beginning of the mission, and that's how it starts. But
it might be kind of like a multi-sprawling thing where it's not like linear levels, like this is level 1 or 2, but it's like these are all the things that are happening, and you can kind of tackle them in any order, and then based on which missions you do first, it'll affect gameplay later on. Now, keep in mind, none of this is, we don't really know what kind of structure the campaign is going to take place, because we only just saw mostly just kind of game mechanics. We didn't really break it down, although they did promise that they would release videos in the future that would kind of break down both the PvE, the co-op, and the multiplayer, because there is going to be a competitive multiplayer aspect to this as well, and I think that this is going to be really the game that it's going to seek to dethrone or compete against at the very least is Rainbow Six Siege, Ubisoft's title, because that game, while not as popular as say Fortnite or Apex Legends, it has it's a large audience and a very niche audience, and I think that it's also kind of like a tactical shooter, kind of 5v5. I think this is going to be 4v4, at least according to stuff in the video. And I'm interested to see how well that they're able to kind of compete with Ubisoft, because from all accounts, people who like Siege really like Siege, despite some of the flaws that it has in terms of its microtransactions and loot boxes and that kind of thing. There is also, I think they mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, they also mentioned that there would be 4-player co-op versus enemy. So you can either play the single-player missions with your, with the AI-controlled SWAT officers, or you and 4 friends could get together and do that. And I think that's a lot of fun, because that's something that the original SWAT 4 did as well, if I remember correctly, is that it had access to co-op multiplayer, which inevitably resulted into, oh shit, I shot you in the back of the head, I'm real sorry about that. Hope you have fun watching the rest of this gameplay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like a lot of people in the comments of that video were saying it looks a lot like Siege. I think those people are going to be disappointed.
Yes.
So I don't really know that maybe the PvE/PvP stuff might, be a bit more of that vein. But I think at this point, I think they're different enough that it's probably not going to scratch the same itch for those people. But we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is going to be less fast-paced and more very creeping tactical combat, whereas Siege is very much frenetic movement and knowing the metagame in terms of which operators on the opposite team and what strategy they employ per map. This game is probably going to devolve into very quick reflexes and careful placement of your guys and not falling in and like setting up ambushes and that sort of thing, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. But regardless of what they do with it, open world or not, I'm definitely interested, because SWAT 4 is still a great game, but
yeah,
the graphics, while not bad, don't really hold up, in 2019, so it would be nice to get an updated version.
It's almost 20 years old now, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of open world games, Aaron, you recently finished the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the one that takes place during the Peloponnesian War in ancient Greece. What are your kind of final thoughts on that game? Did you like it? How does it stack
yeah.
up?
Well, I wrote down a list of bullet points because I'm generally pretty scatterbrained when it comes to actually kind of dissecting things properly with the the thought process that I have at the time, and then trying to like tap back into that same mentality. But I guess I quote unquote finished it. I finished the main story, I guess, and the main story kind of sucks. Yeah. So yeah, like Adam said, Peloponnesian War stuff. I guess this is the first one really where you can pit. Like I'll just go through and try and tear this game apart. Everything that I don't like about it. So yeah, the first game where you can sort of pick and choose who you want to play as. Syndicate kind of introduced that concept, but it wasn't necessarily pick one and then sort of play the game as that character. It kind of
You switched back and forth between the two, didn't you, at different points in the story?
Yes, the story kind of integrated both characters into the main storyline.
I actually thought that was kind of clever for that, because it was interesting to be able to play as kind of two main characters throughout the game, because Assassin's Creed had never really done that before.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I thought it was, pretty well done. Aside from that, I really enjoyed Syndicate as a whole, but it was kind of aggravating to kind of arrive at a mission as one character and then suddenly you're a different character and you do the story mission. Like, I kind of wanted to be able to play the game with one character. Like, it would be nice to be able to do that. Fucking move out of the way, dude. God damn. That was a little frustrating. Maybe you want to do some missions as one character and you end up having to play as a different one. But I guess this game kind of goes the complete other direction and lets you pick one character from the very beginning. And then you kind of stick with it. Now, in the context of the game, both of those characters still exist. It's not like you pick one and the other one isn't born or whatever.
So it's kind of like the Mass Effect Andromeda thing, where if you pick female rider, male rider is still in the game, but just like
yes,
okay,
sort of, yeah. I think the issue that a lot of people have with this game is that Assassin's Creed is almost always been about like his history and retelling the sort of supernatural side of history as accurately as possible.
Well, if I can just interject very quickly,
Yep.
one of the reasons that Assassin's Creed 2 is one of my favorite games. Now, keep in mind, I haven't gone back and played it since really 2010, so I don't know if it still holds up mechanically or anything like that. But one of the reasons
I don't think it does.
I do.
Well, one of the reasons I really enjoyed it is because when it came out, because it came out, I believe, in 2009, I believe. And anyway, when it came out, I was in grade 12 at my high school, and we were studying. I was in an AP history class, and the big focus of like history that year was Italian era Renaissance, which is when Assassin's Creed 2 takes place. So I thought it was a really, really cool that I could go through and actually meet some of the characters that we were, like historical characters, I mean, that we were actually like studying in the game. So keep in mind, that's a very unique experience to me, but it was just very, very cool to be able to be like, oh man, that's Leonardo da Vinci, and then later on you would meet Machiavello, and oh my god, I can't even remember all their names. The dude who was in charge of the Bank of Florence, Vinici. Anyway, all these interesting characters, historical characters that were titans of the Italian Renaissance. It was really cool to be able to see them, and not only that, but the really cool countryside of Italy during the Renaissance, with all of its great architecture and artwork, and you can still see remnants of the Roman Empire kind of buried in the sand from 1,000 years ago. I thought that was all really, really cool. And
on your public exams, did you write about Ezio and the assassins and all that?
I can't remember what I wrote about for the publics. I think I might have, because we moved on to the Enlightenment. I think I might have done something with the Enlightenment instead. But anyway, the question I got for you then is, because the Peloponnesian War has some pretty big players in it. in terms of like historical individuals. Do you still encounter like are there still people that you can encounter in the game that are kind of like big historical heroes, or is it mostly just made up NPCs? Because correct me if I'm wrong, this game is a bit more of an open world RPG as opposed to kind of an Assassin's Creed game in the vein of Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 and so on.
I mean, to answer your question simply, yes, there are historical figures in the game. You know, like Socrates is an example.
Pythagoras. He's in this.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
That fucking madman.
There are a few for sure, and a fair number of them are pretty integrated into the narratives, plural. Yeah, I'll just pick it apart here. I think the biggest issue with the game, this one in particular, compared to even Origins, which is, I guess, really the only one that you can compare it to because it's, you know, the most closely linked in terms of its play style, is that this one gives you the option to sort of choose things in different situations. So if you're like talking to somebody, you can kind of choose how to approach them, whether you're an asshole or a good guy, and, you know, all the way up to does somebody live or does somebody die. But sort of that's sort of a separate issue into itself because it doesn't. I mean, we've talked about it before. How does that again boil down into historical accuracy when you can essentially manipulate the past?
I think it's fair to say at this point, because we have talked about it before. It might just be best to leave it at it's an Assassin's Creed game. Just take, you know, it's a historical drama, but at the same time it's also historical fiction. So take that with a grain of salt.
It is loosely justified in the narrative. They do mention that the current simulation that they're running is less accurate than they recommend, whoever they are, I don't know, but less accurate than they recommend, so that the little gaps in the genetic memories that they have, because this is the oldest timeline that we've visited in Assassin's Creed, all those little gaps were filled in with literature from the period. So there's a lot of stuff that's like, it could be this or it could be that. And I guess the same justification could be they don't know if it was Alexios or Cassandra that sort of played that I guess lived that life that you play in the game.
That's
so
interesting.
I guess that's maybe the way they justify it.
So speaking of those characters, what are the characters? You know, obviously like the main, you know, there's historical characters, whatever. But like, how do those characters come across in the narrative? Are they competently written? Like, is the narrative itself any good?
There's oh man, I got 100 on that. Sweet. Even though I shot that woman with like 47 beanbags.
Is it the one where it's like a sex ring in the basement of the house?
Might have been, yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
Not really. There's really no. There are some interesting sort of threads that they tug on throughout the story, but for the most part, it does seem like it seems like they leave a lot of who those people are up to you, but it sort of bleeds into one of the points I have about the game, in that none of the decisions that you make really matter. So like, rather than the story feeling like it has a traditional arc, you know, like climax and everything, that sort of, it builds up this momentum to this, you know, sort of like a traditional flow of a narrative, I guess you would expect. You know, there's like the you know, hero's journey type story. It just sort of feels more like a long series of disjointed and kind of unrelated missions, which doesn't include all the billions of side missions and randomly generated content, or any like contracts and bounty missions and stuff that you can do that clutter the quest screen, which is another issue I have with it. The sort of the way the quests were organized in Origins was nice. I thought, because it was just sort of a concise list in the menu, and you could sort them by distance, so you could even just go to the closest one to you if you wanted.
That's actually a really clever feature.
Yeah, and I like that. And they have the same thing in this, but I would argue that there are multiple main quests in this game. So in the menu, it kind of separates the quests by the relevant narrative. So it's cool that they separate them, except it makes it even worse to navigate through because now when you're sorting something by distance, you still need to scroll all the way down through the list to see which one is closest to you.
That's annoying.
Which is annoying, yeah. And what else we got on here?
What about the combat? What's the combat like? Because I heard that I've heard very mixed things about the combat.
Well, I'll get to that. There's a fuckload of fetch quests in the game, and it's like on par, it's on level with how many tail missions were in fucking Black Flag, and that was really the breaking point in Assassin's Creed for me, where I just kind of stopped playing for 3 years because of how many fucking goddamn tail missions were. Like, follow this guy, follow this guy, follow this guy, don't get too close, follow this guy. So that was really annoying.
I found those missions in Black Flag not that bad.
There were
I thought
too
they were
many of
much
them.
worse in Revelations and Brotherhood. But in Black Flag, you had that tag ability where you could just like look at them with your vision or whatever,
Yes.
your eagle vision, and they would highlight. I after with that feature, I thought the tail missions weren't so bad. It sucked when you were trying to not get spotted, and enemies were placed in places specifically meant to see you instantly. That was annoying.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I don't really even remember it from Revelations of Brotherhood. I guess I played them so long ago, and I guess I don't know. Maybe I found the setting more interesting or something. But with Black Flag, it just seemed like somehow accentuated how shitty the stealthing was in the game, because there was less architecture to hide behind or climb onto. There's bigger gaps and spaces between things. There's big areas where there's just fields with nothing, and you gotta like run through it and not get spotted by 50 guys.
Well, I mean, from stuff that I've seen, because I haven't played the game myself, but different gameplay videos I've seen, it seems like there's less focus on stealth overall. It seems to be more of a combat-focused game, and I think Assassin's Creed Origins did that as well, where it kind of, not that there wasn't stealth, but there was also a much greater focus on just up-and-up fighting, whereas in Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, if you got into an up-and-up fight, you're pretty much screwed, because unless you can take the guy out quickly, it's better just to run away and try to hide again.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely one major change that sort of Syndicate introduced, was the leveling system, and I guess Origins really kind of dialed it up to 11. And I mean, even in Origins though, the stealth worked better than most of the other games. Syndicate really had stealth figured out, I think, for the first time in the franchise. And then with Origins and Odyssey, they've kind of kept the same thing though. You can actually stealth into a base if you want to. I think the biggest problem with Origins and Odyssey is that unless you have a very particular build to do a lot of damage in one strike with your assassin weapon, then you're not going to kill them in one hit, so stealthing is kind of irrelevant. And that is kind of one of the major problems with that sort of thing. It seems like there's a lot of different play styles, but you can only really get to them towards the end of the game when you have enough stuff to actually sort of build that type of character. So that's kind of a drawback. There's microtransactions, obviously, though,
Well, I mean, that's par for the course from a AAA game these
pretty
days,
much.
so.
They never really interfered with.
Not excusing that, by the way.
No, yeah, it's not an excuse. They're stupid. There's no reason to have microtransactions in a single player game. So, with that said, they never really. Oh, fuck you, dude! Oh, I ran out of ammo. They never really got distracting or anything, and some of them you can straight up just buy with in-game money. Not like a massive grind. You can just go to a specific blacksmith and buy them. And there's other places to earn it, though. The way Origins let you earn the cosmetics in the last game was way easier than it is in this game, so they've clearly dialed up how much paid for stuff they want you to get without actually spending money. So I kind of just completely crossed it off my list when I got to it, and it's like, you need to, I think it's called Ori Colcum or some weird fucking rock that you can find and use as a currency. And you can get them, you can do like specific RNG quests which are more or less all fetch quests, to get this currency to buy stuff. And I think you can get a pretty decent amount of them by doing that, though it's pretty fucking boring. Otherwise, you'll just randomly find them throughout the world. Yet you'll need like between 40 to 100 to buy a cosmetic, and you'll by the end of the game, I had like 40 or 50. So it's like you really don't get enough of them to do anything with it without spending money. It's really stupid. So I don't know. I would say just completely cross that off your list. Don't even bother looking at the shit that they can have there. But yeah, leveled enemies. One of the main differences between Origins and Odyssey is that I think on normal difficulty in Origins, the enemies stayed at the levels of the areas they were in. So if the starting area was like max level 5 and you got up to level 50, then when you came back, they were all still level 5. You could, kill them by breathing on them. But in Odyssey, it's different. Even on the easiest difficulty now, enemies still level with you. And they stay, depending on the difficulty you pick, within 4 levels below or 4 levels above you. So you're more or less always out of your league, no matter where you go. And it doesn't really help that the new bounty system, where mercenaries will come after you for committing crimes, if you rob something, money from somebody, or murder somebody in the streets, which previously used to desync you. Now you just get a bounty, and the mercenaries will come after you, and which is probably going to happen a lot because you can't stealth properly, and then you end up with a shitload of mercenaries coming after you, trying to kill you, and they're generally pretty high level with pretty high level gear. So that gets frustrating early on, unless you'd like try to do everything very quietly. I don't know. It's a weird system. I guess it's really not a stealthy Assassin's Creed type flavor, but there you go. And also, I don't know if there was a gear, like a capacity limit in Origins. Was there, Andrew? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because well, I guess it was less important because in Origins they still had outfits. Like you couldn't really customize what your character wore. You just got an outfit and that was it. And then you had your weapons and I think a couple pieces of armor that you could kind of interchange. But it never really mattered too much because...
No, you couldn't change your armor. You can only upgrade it. You can only upgrade... You
right,
had
right,
5
right.
different things that you could upgrade through,
right.
Crafting and whatnot.
Right.
And your outfit was superfluous.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't contribute to your stats in any way, right? Well, so in Odyssey, you have 5 pieces of equipment now, like a helmet and gauntlets and that sort of thing. Those can all be changed and swapped out. They have a visual model now, so when you equip them, they have a stat associated with them and an aesthetic associated with them. So they're not just like superfluous anymore. Although I guess they can be in some ways because the game also lets you, if you don't like the look of your gauntlets, you can exchange that appearance with any other set of gauntlets that you have acquired in the game so far. You don't need to have them in your inventory or anything. You can just sort of swap them out. So if you would like to have like a specific set of armor, but you're not using those specific pieces, then you can sort of aesthetically change them to that, which I think is a nice feature. It's just, I guess, kind of get back to outfits and how outfits worked without having outfits per se. God damn it, I keep getting shot by these assholes. But anyway, yeah, the Odyssey also has a gear capacity limit now as well, which is an issue because you have all those extra pieces of armor. Having a gear capacity essentially means you'll be spending most of the game either scrapping or selling your gear because you do have that capacity. I think it's 350 on your person and then another 350 on your ship later in the game when you get that, which I guess it's not terrible, but it is kind of annoying if you're like me and you kind of want to collect each unique piece of gear, because there are unique pieces of gear that you'll get for doing missions and stuff, which kind of in some ways have different stats than the normal ones. A lot of the stats on the armor are RNG. So if you're trying to collect all the pieces of gear, it makes it a pain in the ass to try and like weed through all the new ones you picked up. You'll end up killing a bunch of mercenaries and then spending 5 minutes looking through all your shit to see which has the best stats. So that's a little bit annoying. But back to decision making. Yeah, like I said, like I was saying, outcomes like letting someone live or die. The game just sort of forgets that. So regardless of what binary decision you make, it kind of just glosses over it. Like if you have to choose between a character living or dying, the game just generally forgets that they exist entirely, and they're just kind of written out of the story. So it really doesn't feel like it made much of an impact because nothing really changes moving forward. They're just because they're not a part of your life anymore. And because the narrative doesn't acknowledge any of the decisions that you make, it just sort of maintains a neutral pacing that doesn't, like I was saying earlier, it doesn't really feel like it has a proper pacing to it. Yeah, and I think I was telling you guys in our chat, I literally only realized that I had finished the main, in air quotes, story when the New Game Plus thing prompted at me on the screen. I was like,
It seems like narratively this game is lacking because aside from 3, most of the other games seem to have at least a pretty decent narrative, in my opinion.
Yes,
3 had a great narrative.
No, it didn't.
It was a great game.
I like the narrative of 3. I don't like Connor, but that's just me.
That's fair. Connor is an abrasive character, but he's not a poorly written character.
No, he's just not interesting.
Fair
I
enough.
also don't think that the American Revolution is a great setting for an Assassin's Creed game. I think the Civil War might have been a little bit better for that one. But anyway, so I guess any final thoughts?
Well, I got a bunch of positive things. I'll try and fly through these because
no, we only talk about bad things on this podcast.
Oh, okay.
Also, this is a 4-hour-long podcast.
Yeah. Other than so I would say there are 3 main quests in this game. Do you mind minor spoilers, Andrew?
Kinda.
Okay,
I will play this at some point. I mean, for the sake of the podcast, you can talk, whatever.
Well,
I'll take out my headphones for a minute.
It's super subtle, and I don't think it'll be a surprise to you at all. Anyway, yeah. So essentially, the first storyline that the game considers the main story is about who you are playing as. Essentially, it's their life. That's what the game considers the main story. There are 2 other stories that I would say are more important than that. And the second one is a more subtle... I'll try to keep it even more vague than I was going to put it. The subtle origins to the rivalry in the Assassin's Creed
between the Templars and
the Templars and the Assassins. It's a very sort of subtle nod to getting that ball rolling.
Because this is very early. I don't even think the Assassin Order really exists, or the Templar Order for that matter.
So how long ago does this game take place before Origins?
Well, I think it's 300 years.
About 400, about 370 or 80 years.
So if Odyssey is like the rumblings of the Assassins, what did it take almost 400 more years before anyone
not really
started doing
not
assassin
really
stuff?
There it's difficult to explain. You'll have to play it. I don't think that part is done particularly badly. It's not like they're like, hey, we should start an organization, but let's wait until the last game where it takes place in the future. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like there's definitely... It feels more like there's... the ball starts rolling with the Templars, and then there's a bit of pushback from people to be like, hang on, who are these people? So I like that aspect of the game. And then I guess the third storyline is about the modern characters and what they're doing. And even though the modern characters aren't like super interesting or anything, I think the almost drip-fed story that they're telling is really cool. And I like that. And they started something like halfway through the game, and I'm really hoping that they finish it. Who knows if they will or not, because it's Assassin's Creed and they generally like doing a cock tease every 4 years with the Isu storyline and stuff, but who knows. But yeah, other than that, I really thought the sort of... There's a ton of like really good side quests in the game, and a lot of them, there's a lot of little islands in Greece. And a lot of those have their own sort of politics going on, their own characters, their own little stories. Those definitely have arcs, and just going there and seeing those people and like meeting who they are and like trying to figure out maybe who should rise to power or we should kill these people or you know whatever. Those storylines are really cool and self-contained, and I feel like they're probably one of the better parts of the game in terms of the narrative.
It definitely seemed like Ubisoft looked to Witcher 3 for side quests and stuff.
Yeah.
But where Witcher 3 also has a really awesome main quest, I think maybe it faltered there as well. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it's difficult it's hard to believe that Cassandra is the canon choice for the story.
Considering, you know, stuff that happened in future and like updates and stuff about how the lineage is passed on.
No, just sort of how the game approaches playing Cassandra. Like one of the most obvious rough edges for me playing through the game is the game lets you romance people in this. You can like choose to romance them if you want, or you can just say fuck off and just do their mission or whoever they are. Except throughout the game I encountered, including a story mission they added later, which wasn't even, not a story mission, but a side mission that they added later, I encountered 3 males that you could romance. And one of them, I'm pretty sure, doesn't go anywhere because he just dies immediately after you get a romance option. And then
That's what happens to men.
Like praying mantises.
Yeah.
Right.
But in terms of how many females you can romance, I must have encountered at least 30. So it's like it doesn't make sense for this to be Cassandra's story unless she's a lesbian, which is totally fine, except we find out later that she's not a lesbian. She ends up having a child.
Well, she can still be a lesbian.
Or bisexual, but it's strange. It's a weird decision. There's also a couple of other things where like women just weren't allowed to do specific things in ancient Greece, but Cassandra can walk all over
Ancient
it.
Greece was really progressive. It's even more progressive than our world today. Don't you know anything about history?
It's really not. Although that being said, Spartan women enjoyed, you know, citizen Spartan women enjoyed more rights and freedoms than their Athenian counterparts. So in that aspect, Sparta was actually more progressive than Athens. But in many other ways they weren't, because they had a shit ton of slaves, like a lot of slaves. The kingdom was run on slaves.
Yeah.
I guess kind of wrapping up, because we've been, you know, not to, because we got other topics to get to.
I'll fly through this. I'll fly through it. The combat is great. Styling works. Dodging and blocking finally work because it didn't in Origins. I like the way the weapons feel. I like the looks of the weapons. I like the effects. I like being able to modify the weapons now. You couldn't do that in Origins. You can like add additional stats to weapons. So if you want a weapon to, you want a sword that can do fire damage and catch people on fire, you can do that now. Which is, you know, whatever magic. It's cool though. And the different types of builds that you can make with those modifications are really cool. So like I was saying, if you want to very late in the game do a dickload of damage assassin wise and just run through a base, kill everybody in one hit, you can do that, which is really cool. Ships are back. The ship combat is really fun. You can split ships in half, which is fucking awesome, just by like ramming them and stuff. I really like the bounty system, like I was saying with the mercenaries. And I think one of the best parts of the game, I'll probably wrap it up on this, is the fact that you can, and it's a system I think other Assassin's Creed games could probably benefit from, is the sort of dynamic power struggle feature that the game has, which lets you sort of enter a region and dismantle it piece by piece, like, you know, rob the country blind or kill a bunch of commanders or essentially just completely destroy a leader's stronghold on an island nation or even just a part of like continental Greece. It's really cool to go in and just tear a dude's life apart and just see like the effects that has. It's not just like all of a sudden, you know, the dude is just still living in his house or whatever. Like you'll see them walking down the street by themselves wearing rags because you took everything from them, or sitting in a tent on the outskirts of their town because they're now outcast for destroying their city. And you can just walk up to them and stab them or something. There's one guy pushed off a cliff because he was standing next to one. I thought it was pretty funny. It's cool that you can kind of do that.
Cassandra's a really great heroic character.
Well, it depends on, I guess, if you want to pick Athenian or Spartan, and it doesn't really matter because the game lets you constantly go back and forth between the two. for some reason.
Knowing history, you should go with Sparta.
Yeah, but it's Assassin's Creed. Maybe that changes because. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. So yeah, I would say that if you are looking for, if you like Assassin's Creed and you're interested in that sort of open world combat type thing, then sure, check it out. But if the RPG elements and the narrative are something that you would prefer, then I would probably say look elsewhere.
Good review. I just got, before we go on to the next topic, very briefly, obviously there's going to be another Assassin's Creed coming out soon. It's Ubisoft. They're milking this franchise for all of its worth. What do you you get one guess, what do you think is the next setting is going to be for the Assassin's Creed game? I think it's probably...
We already talked about this.
Yeah, I know. I want to go over it again.
Oh.
I want it to be
But it's already been leaked. We already know
has
what
it?
it is. Yes.
Oh, what is it?
Legion. In Rome.
I didn't think that was confirmed. I thought that was just rumored.
It's all but confirmed.
Oh. Well, if we're talking about not being whoa, that's a trippy mirror. If we're talking about not being confirmed and we get a hypothetical guess as to where we would like it to be, then I'm going to say feudal Japan.
I'm also going to go with feudal Japan, the Sengoku Jedi, that big
Jedi.
war period.
I'm going to use my master psychic abilities and psycho abilities, I guess. And I'm going to predict, and you can quote me on this,
Okay,
I think it's going to be in Rome, and it's going to be called Assassin's Creed Legion.
All right.
They won't do that. They already did one close to Rome with a lot of Roman stuff that they could recycle for another game. Oh my God, it's Rome.
Oh no.
They can literally take Odyssey and Origins and not have to make any new content and just put together Rome and
I do like the Mediterranean, though. I feel like that's an area that doesn't get explored much in games. I really like the aesthetic of Odyssey.
I mean, right up until pretty much the fall of the Roman Empire, and even very late after that, for most of history, the Mediterranean has been the biggest focus of certainly Western history. Because, it is the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, it's a big... I'm talking about in, games, though. There's not many games that take place.
Yeah, fair. Well, there's not very many historical games, really, that don't take place in World War II, Moving on from that, Andrew, you've been playing a game recently as well, although much different than Assassin's Creed.
Not that much different.
It's pretty different.
It's pretty much the same game, really.
What are your thoughts on Dead or Alive 6? Is it a fighting game, or is it it's not beach volleyball? That's extreme, right?
Right.
I like how if you have just regular Dead or Alive, it's a fighting game, but if you scale that up, it becomes beach volleyball. Like volleyball's above fighting.
You mean more extreme?
No, just above.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Hey, so...
Like if you had UFC Extreme, it would just be a bunch of buff dudes playing volleyball.
Playing with the boys.
Are we bad-mouthing Dead or Alive right now?
No, I'm bad-mouthing fucking...
Depends on your opinion of it. Depends.
So what do you think? What do you think of this latest game? Because this is the first Dead or Alive game to come out in a long time, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, it's the first one to come out since Dead or Alive 5, which
when was that?
The one before this one.
Was it called Dead or 5?
Yeah.
So what do you think of this game?
Pretty good. It's not bad. If you liked Dead or Alive 5, you'll probably like the gameplay of this. It's a really pretty game.
In terms of boob physics?
Well, actually, that seems toned down quite a bit.
Is it loaded down with microtransactions and stuff? Because I know that was a big issue with some of the fighting games that have come out recently.
Yes. So, this is a bare bones game. There's a story mode. There's, some challenge modes that you need to do to unlock any costumes, and it's really grindy. Like, extremely grindy, to the point where I have no desire to attempt to unlock any outfits at all. So every outfit unlock it has 2 different types of currencies. in-game currencies, not microtransaction currencies, not yet anyway.
That's interesting.
So every challenge mode you do, you get a set number of like, I believe it's called thread or outfit points or something like that. And they go towards a random outfit for a random character.
So it's like loot boxes, but you don't pay for them, and you got to grind for them instead.
A little bit, yeah.
That doesn't seem better.
No, it's much, much worse.
What about the combat itself? Is that any good?
Yeah, I mean, it plays like a Dead or Alive game. If you've ever played a Dead or Alive game, it plays like that.
You know,
it's not. It doesn't play like Tekken. It doesn't play like Street Fighter. It plays like Dead or Alive. I can't really explain how it plays other than that.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's very hard to explain like how Tekken is different from Street Fighter, unless you're
Right.
Warren. I'm sure you'd find a way to do it. But just in terms of like, does it? Because I mean, I know a lot of Mortal Kombat, not the latest one, but the one before Street Fighter versus Capcom, or whatever it is. That game, the most recent version of that, it came out, and a lot of fans didn't like it. What's the fan feedback for this game? Is like in terms of combat, is it generally an improvement, kind of middle of the road? Is it a step backwards for features? It seems like it might be a step backwards if it's very bare bones about stuff and it becomes really grindy.
Yeah. So fan reception isn't great. This is the game that has the $100 season pass.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
So fan
That's too
reception
much for
hasn't been
season
great.
pass.
Apparently, there's a patch coming out later this month that will attempt to address the grindiness of the outfit unlocks, but I'm not really holding my breath. I like Dead or
wouldn't.
Alive a lot. I like the series, but this is, I mean, in a way, I like the transparency of how scummy this game is, because from a top-down perspective, looking at this thing, it's not a whole lot scummier than most Ubisoft games or most EA games. It's about the same, but this is with the $99 expansion pass, it's very transparent how scummy it is. It's not hidden. It's not hidden behind a bunch of, play this for some time so we get you hooked, and then we try to prey on your addictive whatever.
It's not like Destiny's, what you're saying.
It's not Destiny where I'll buy this $80 game now, and you end up spending $100 throughout your playtime on random crap that you don't really want.
Yeah.
Dead or Alive 5 did this as well. Like, hey, I want a new costume. I want a new outfit for Mila or something. So hey, that specific costume costs $2. So if you want it, you can spend $2, or you can grind like hell for it. It sucks, but it is transparent.
Well, I suppose that's as good as we're gonna get from a AAA game now that's kind of geared towards not providing a good game experience, but holding features back for more money.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, I guess the next thing that we should talk about, because we're kind of on the topic of scummy developers doing scummy things. Apparently, and I'm gonna guess that Andrew posted this to the chat, so I'm gonna ask you about this. There's a game coming out called Rape Day, and that was removed.
Why would you just assume that I did this?
Because it doesn't. It seems like the kind of thing that you would read about on the various subreddits that you go to about like cringy things happening.
I actually didn't post this.
No.
No.
Oh, okay, Aaron. There's a game. Well, what can you tell me about this story?
Well, there's a game called Rape Day where you can do what the title explains, as you'd expect.
And probably appropriately enough, I believe it's now been taken off of Steam. If this little
yeah, the game was about the apocalypse or something and letting you murder and rape people for some reason.
So it's a visual novel, takes place in the post-apocalypse,
or
I guess during the apocalypse. And you play as like a fat, gross rapist.
It wasn't a visual novel. That was just like a
Not a
shitty
visual
game.
novel? I read
No, it was
visual
like
novel.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe because I saw a bunch of screenshots and it looked like it was 3D, but maybe they were just like,
Well,
flat images.
it's probably using like DAZ 3D or something, some program like that.
Maybe.
That lets you manipulate 3D characters and stuff, and then you just take
probably.
a snapshot. You edit it
Turbo,
in
yeah.
Photoshop, and then you make your visual novel. I'm very well versed in these visual novels, Aaron.
Oh, probably. Well, that's even lower effort than I had assumed. Yeah. So anyway, before it got released, Steam were like, "Yeah, you know what? We're not gonna launch this. This is a bad time. Nobody wants this." And so they removed it, which is good because it's stupid. There's like, I guess there's a lot of desensitization in society, murdering people and committing crimes and that sort of thing. But
Rape
I think
is different. Rape is a step above even murder. Like, yes, there's games where you can haul demons' arms off and beat them to death with it. Yes, there's games where you can mow through towns of Russian soldiers and murder them all. Yes, there are games where you can go out and shoot cops. But rape I feel like, then is a step above that. Like, and I don't think that I don't think any kind of property that super glorifies that is something that I personally would want to consume. So I think
we're not there yet as a society. Rape is not socially acceptable in 2019.
And I hope it never becomes socially acceptable.
Well, murder got socially acceptable.
No, it didn't. When did it become socially acceptable?
People play Call of Duty all the time.
Okay, that's not murder. It's bringing freedom to Russians.
All right, well then, raping people in a game is not rape.
Freedom from their lives.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not an American, why are you even alive?
Yeah, really though.
No, but I think good on Steam for taking this game off because first off, the video games are facing an increased level of scrutiny nowadays because of various comments that have been made by people in the press blaming them for the stupid, senseless shooting sprees that happen in the States all the time. And I don't think video games need this kind of level of bad press right now. And second off, what the fuck are you doing making a game where you can go out and rape people? Like, I mean, do what you want, I suppose, but like you have to understand that people are not going to be, find this okay. I mean, there is a there is a perception difference between shooting, other soldiers and raping people. It's kind of like why that game Hatred was so kind of universally reviled, because you're just running around shooting innocent people. You're not shooting.
Hatred is still on Steam.
Yes, but that's a topic for another. But I mean, it's still kind of reviled by most people, because I mean, there's a difference between shooting people who are shooting back at you, shooting at terrorists.
Well, I mean, even use Call of Duty as an example. People don't. It hasn't even been a thing of question in the past with all these games, different Call of Duty games that exist. But at the same time, and I think Modern Warfare 2, there was that level where you go into an airport and fucking mow down a bunch of civilians.
Yeah.
And suddenly, that was the talk of the town. Everybody's talking about this. You can't go mowing down civilians; they're innocent. That's crossing a line, Activision. And rightly so. I guess it is different to enter a kind of a. It feels like a consensual war scenario where people are shooting at you, you're shooting at them. Having a big old spat.
And obviously war is not a great thing to do either, but it is a difference between shooting down, like I said before, it just feels different shooting at people who are shooting back at you as opposed to mowing people down. Now there are ways that you can do stuff like that in a game where it kind of, where it can be presented
like Oblivion, where you can just hack down civilians and no one's ever cared about that.
All right, we should probably move on from this topic before we get into trouble. Kind of moving on from that to another really a game that's being taken off of consoles, but for a completely different reason. Anthem, the internet, gaming's latest punching bag, is now bricking consoles. I didn't even think it was possible for a game to brick a console in the modern day and age, but here we go. So I believe, when I read this story, it was mostly PlayStation 4s that were being affected by this, but apparently it has happened to some people's Xboxes as well, and PCs. Apparently, even Funhouse, if you watch their channel, James had to completely reboot his system when he installed Anthem, or I can't remember if it was James or if it was Lawrence. One of them had to completely overhaul their system because Anthem introduced a critical fault, and then apparently was constantly rebooting. So yeah, this is obviously a pretty bad thing for a video game to be doing.
Yeah, I think they have addressed the issue, and they will be patching it. I guess this week, the week the video is coming out.
I fucking hope so.
It's still an issue as of right now, and has been an issue for a week or more.
Which is too long for a thing to be bricking consoles. Because there's a difference between... If the game crashes, the game crashes. But when it prevents you from playing other games on the $400 console that you've purchased, that's kind of a massive deal and a big fuck about.
Yeah. But I guess on sort of that level as well, it's just driving more people to Division 2, which comes out next week as well.
Yeah.
It does seem, I peruse the Division subreddit, I guess, more frequently now because the second game is coming out. It does seem like a massive influx of people coming over from the Anthem subreddit saying like, Anthem is garbage, please let me play this game instead.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Division, apparently there a lot of details have come out about the Division in the last couple of weeks, kind of ahead of its release. You've been posting to the chat like crazy, Aaron, so you want to just quickly run through some of them?
Yeah, more or less all around improvements upon the first game. The second game plays a lot like the first one, though I guess biggest one, they've made a lot of enemies a lot less bullet spongy. I'm just going to exit out of here, fuck this. They've made the RNG sort of less of a component to progressing. There's still RNG in terms of what guns that you get from like dropping from enemies and stuff, but in terms of like upgrading things or crafting new things or even unlocking exotics now, like the highest grade, rarest weapons in the game, like the named legendary weapons, there are methods now to unlocking those, like tasks or quests, missions, I guess. And if you want to upgrade something, then rather than just rolling the dice and hoping you get a specific attribute, like +5 damage or something like that, rather than just doing that over and over again, hoping to get that specific stat, you can now, in addition, just if you have a weapon that you like the stat on, but maybe it's too low level, or you want it on another weapon entirely, then you can just swap it over, swap the stats over, which is interesting, and sort of let you play it in a different way, I guess. The way that there's strongholds now, which are really cool, a really cool thing. They've essentially just added
raid dungeons.
Yeah, they will be adding a raid, which is separate post-launch, but there's strongholds that are sort of integrated into the story now. I think there are 3 major factions at launch, and they sort of each have their own main base, which act as a stronghold. And then throughout the narrative, you kind of go in and just tear them apart, which is interesting. I like the way they have that all set up. And then post-story, the end game stuff is where a lot of the game has been fleshed out, where a 4th faction will then be introduced in the end game. And they're sort of just like a really high-end PMC to rival the Division. And then you can go in and essentially redo it. It's more like a New Game Plus in a way, but an entirely different, super high-level New Game Plus where...
I found that interesting, because that's something that Destiny 2 really needed. It was really anything to do in the post-game. And I think a New Game Plus with an additional enemy kind of taking over a lot of missions and changing the nature of the missions would have been helpful. Yeah,
so the missions all throughout, more or less, will have small elements of RNG in them where enemies won't always come in through the same doors, or you may not always fight the same boss character. And then that carries over into the end game as well, where... the levels aesthetically are different, like the lighting and everything is changed, and then the progress through those levels is different as well. You'll fight different enemies from different locations. The objectives will always be different. So in terms of end game stuff, rather than maybe you really like a specific location and you like playing that level, then you can sort of keep doing that level over and over again, and much in the way of SWAT 4 have sort of randomized objectives for you to complete. to kind of keep it semi-fresh, which is interesting. So that's really cool. I really like how they're taking a lot of the elements from the first game and fleshing them out with actual like content. You know, like if something that you just was a roll of the dice in the last game, like the best example of that, I guess, that we can finish on, talking about Division anyway, is in the last game when you sort of reach the end game, you could progress through world tiers based on your gear score. And the gear was obviously based on, you know, things that you found and picked up and how you progressed. That was sort of just like something that you unlocked. You're now world tier level 2. Congratulations, you're now world tier level 3. In this game, you still have world tiers, but you have to do challenges now. There's missions, like so you'll assault those strongholds again in the end game, but in that same sort of RNG'd sort of end game fourth faction style. So there's associated missions and challenges with that now, and I think that's cool.
Interesting.
So I'm looking forward to it.
So I guess we can kind of move on from that because E3 is coming up in a couple of months this year, and we're already starting to get a few kind of hints at stuff that's going to be happening. I guess the first thing is that we're not going to be getting E3 or EA at E3 this year again. And I think the internet went, well, fuck you too. And, you know, because EA is obviously not in the best terms with its, you know, the gaming public right now. Andrew, what do you think about all this?
Well, I'm not surprised that they're leaving.
Yeah, me either.
Their conferences have always been pretty lackluster, to say the least.
Well, to me, it seemed
and I
like
don't
they...
think... Go ahead.
It just seemed to me that their conferences were not geared towards gamers like some of the other conferences are, like Sony and Xbox, but more towards their investors.
For the stockholders. So, yeah. I mean, this isn't surprising at all. I'm surprised. I'm surprised this didn't happen earlier. But I think this year being such a shit show for them, I think it's really driven home the fact that maybe their properties need to be looked at again. Maybe their whole thing that they're doing needs to be re-examined.
I agree with you, Andrew. I do think that that EA needs to look at how they're running their business and how they're handling their properties and how they're handling their studios, and consider potentially doing something else, because as of right now, it's whatever they're doing is not really effective, and they're not gaining any love in the gaming community or even the development community. Because I know like a lot, like working for EA can't be easy when you're worried about getting fired or your studio getting shut down because of lackluster performance. I mean, I think we're all real nervous for BioWare right now.
I want one more Dragon Age game.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope the Dragon Age game is better than Mass Effect Andromeda. I hope.
Well, what'll happen is BioWare will get shut down, and then they'll move on and make a spiritual sequel called Wyvern Era.
Yeah,
that's so dumb. Also, I guess kind of another thing is that we're probably... There's been a lot of rumors floating about on the internet that I've seen about like potentials that we're going to get announcements of the next console generation, so the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox whatever. And
just a second, Mr. Host, if I may, before we move away from EA.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's fair to say that EA don't have anything to show this year either.
Yeah. Because
they're going to be showing their Star Wars game in April at the Star Wars Celebration or whatever. So that game's out the window. Anthem's a flop. All they have is like Need for Speed and fucking Plants vs. Zombies and sports games. Yeah. So there's really nothing to see from EA this year, I don't think.
I'm honestly going to be a little bit disappointed that they're not there, because it's always nice to see a good old-fashioned EA shit show at these conferences and just make fun of them. So I am going to miss that, but maybe the conference will be better.
BioWare hasn't announced. Bethesda hasn't announced that they're skipping it as well.
Yeah, well, they've taken a shit kicking this year too, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but it's Bethesda and Microsoft.
Yeah,
Sony's out. EA's out.
E3 is going to be kind of a bit of a soggy dick this year.
Is Ubisoft out?
No, Ubisoft is still in. So it's
Microsoft,
Bethesda, Microsoft,
Ubisoft, and then I guess whatever other developers. You know what E3 should be doing now, because a lot of the big developers are leaving, is having a more kind of generalized atmosphere and allowing some of the smaller developers, instead of going up and like, oh, you're part of the Xbox conference, saying like, and now maybe like a, kind of like what the PC gaming show does, and just have like, here's the show, and the next 3 hours we're just going to be letting developers kind of come up and talk about their games,
Open
regardless.
mic.
Not open mic, but you know what I mean. More like the PC gaming.
Hi, is this thing on? I'm Phil. Oh shit. I work at Microsoft, and I have 2 watches. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
All right, that was Phil. Kind of getting back to what I was talking about before, we're getting a lot of rumors about like potential new console releases for the next generation of consoles. I saw something today that it was saying that the next generation Xbox game is going to be completely, consoles is not going to have any disc drive in it. But according to the kind of notes that I have in front of me, apparently that's more likely to be an Xbox One S. So like, I guess like a slim version of the Xbox. Like, anyway, who posted
Xbox One Super S.
Yeah. So
Super
like,
slim.
I assumed that this was going to be like the Xbox 4. For lack of for lack of a proper title, but are you telling me this is more like an Xbox 3.75 then? Because Xbox One X is really more of an Xbox 3.5 if you want to look at it that way.
I think this will just be a cheaper regular Xbox One because it won't have a disc drive, and could also potentially be Xbox testing or Microsoft testing the waters on how much interest is in a console without a drive. I think it's probably fair to say that everybody who wants an Xbox at this point already does. So they probably have pretty tapered expectations. But even still,
I don't know what they're going to prove by releasing this now.
Not necessarily,
just
sort of like a one of those polling votes, just to see. Does anybody want this? It's on the market. How many Xboxes are we selling? Well, how many of those are the ones without disc drive?
It's a potentially big gamble because they could be wasting a lot of money on well, not that big, because like they'll be releasing this console, and if it doesn't sell well, they can always fall back on the sales of the Xbox One and the One X.
Yeah.
But if it does really well, then Microsoft can get ahead of the curve and release a console that doesn't have a disc drive in it, if that's what the public wants, and potentially free up space there for other things, or just to make the console smaller. I am nervous about the loss. Nervous about the loss of potential physical media in games, because that takes power away from me as a gamer to be able to actually own the games themselves. So, like, when you have
not really though.
Well, kind of, because if those I own a lot of games digitally. I don't have very many of them downloaded because the PlayStation 4 has a pathetic hard drive capacity, at least the one that I got. And if Sony goes out of business tomorrow, I can't play God of War anymore because I don't have it downloaded. I have to go out and get God of War the disc and then burn it. Use the disc.
Yeah, but even then, even if you have the disc, I think there's still a lot of games that require downloading a chunk of the game.
Well, then we're all screwed if the games industry is going to get to the point where we're, for archival purposes, we're going to be screwed, or we're going to have to rely on emulators and stuff to get access to these old games.
I guess so, yeah. I think that's maybe the intended route, like remove the disc drive and put a bigger hard drive in it. And then, because a lot of games nowadays, like you look at modern games, they're 90, 100, 150 gigs games nowadays. You can't fit that on a disc, and it's they don't come out with games anymore that come on multiple discs.
But with the power of Blu-ray.
So, why ship a disc? Why have disc costs when the disc only contains a small portion of the game, and ultimately, if the servers do go down tomorrow, you still can't play it if it's not installed.
I mean,
so
it also kind of goes hand in hand with the video game market's fucking undying hatred big box stores and like GameStop and places like that, because I don't think that they like selling those games to those people, because they don't get a lot of revenue from those sales as much as they do with digital sales. Like,
Yeah.
I think Sony gets a higher percentage of the digital sales for God of War than they do if God of War sold out of Walmart, which makes
Oh,
sense.
totally.
And
And
so
I
I
mean,
think, like,
Walmart could still sell keys,
yeah, but
to,
nobody's going to go to
those
Walmart
games.
to get a key. They're just going to get it from the PlayStation Store.
No,
as an
but
example.
GameStop is absolutely going to hope somebody goes and buys a key because they don't have a credit card.
Yeah, well, let's not hold our breath on GameStop being around for very much longer.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm okay with this. I haven't, it's nice to have. In terms of a modern game console, I think it's fine. In terms of something like a PC that maybe you access old files on, or no matter what you're doing with a computer, I feel like it's a good idea to have a drive and a desktop. In a laptop, maybe less so. You probably don't need it. If it's your only machine, then it's nice to have. I feel like you should have a disk drive somewhere.
In your tablet.
Even like floppy
In your
disks. Like
tablet.
I have a floppy disk drive. I got an HD DVD player. I got them all. So
You
if
have
I
a floppy drive?
Yep. Not in my computer. Not in this computer anyway. I have one
Oh.
downstairs, and a computer downstairs. But even like a VHS player, like I got all of them. So if I ever need to use old media for whatever reason, I got one hooked up somewhere.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, whether it's work related or even just like, you know what, I want to go back and play Top Gun on DOS, then I'll just go boot it up. So I think that's nice. But in terms of a modern console where you can really only get whatever services they provide you, then I think it's fine, because at this point discs are really just a technicality in the gaming industry. We don't need them.
So kind of moving on from that, just some more stuff on console. So apparently, Sony is there's a PS4 update that allows you to stream games to iOS devices. They mean like when you use your share function, like people with iOS devices can log into your share, like doing
No,
that.
this straight up lets you play PS4 games on your iPhone.
Oh,
Yeah.
how? There's no way an
I
iPhone
assume-
can support like God of War or
No,
Red Dead
it's
Redemption.
it's not processing the game. The console is still rendering the game. It
Oh.
streams it works the same way with the PS Vita, I guess.
Remember
let me-
on live?
Let me rephrase. Why on earth would I want to play Red Dead Redemption 2 on my fucking phone? Can you imagine how hard the inputs would be?
Yeah.
The game barely fits on a controller.
The only reason I know about this is because I saw someone post on the Elite subreddit that they were playing Elite on their phone, which is interesting. But again, entirely a novelty. I don't know what the purpose of it is. Playing a mobile game with like on-screen buttons is the most unintuitive fucking thing I've ever done in my life.
I guess you could get a Bluetooth controller.
Maybe. I guess you could do that as well.
Then you
But
gotta
even
find
still,
someone to
I
prop
don't
it
know.
up. Like, can you imagine
just-
propping your... Like, on the subway, somebody props their phone up on their leg.
Well, some
and
of them, like your phone clips into like an Xbox-like controller, and then you just
yeah.
control like that. But they just destroy your battery life, and the phone gets super fucking hot when you're doing stuff. All of it streaming, I don't know. It might be a bit better, but even still, it's entirely novelty.
It'll kill
You're
your
on your-
data.
Would
is
kill.
what it'll do.
I guess if you're out in town somewhere, if you can still do that, if it still works that way, then yeah, you totally would. That sort of brings up like a separate issue of 5G going on. Like people talking about super fast internet connection being a bad thing for.
We ain't
people
got
with data caps.
7G yet?
We're not 7G yet. But the point that was raised that I thought was a pretty good one was having a higher download speed doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fly through your data faster. You're still going to do things the same way that you do them. But because you have a higher download speed, the internet will start to send you the high resolution versions of things, or stream video at a higher resolution, or even download more files when you just visit Reddit, because the page is now has a higher bit rate, or a higher bandwidth rather. So even just simply having a higher download speed could be a bad thing if you have a data cap.
just kind of keeping on topic of talking about consoles, apparently you can switch the X and 0 or O buttons on a PlayStation controller in Asia.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping Rory was going to be here when I put this on the list, because this seems really stupid. Andrew, do you know anything about this?
Sony lets you swap the X and O buttons.
All right.
Actually, it's cross and circle. It should be. Buttons on PS4 in Asia.
All right.
Yeah. I don't...
I think I know why. I think I know what this is. So, in a lot of... If you ever played an old PS1 games... If you ever played PS1 games from Japan back in the day, you might have noticed that accept and cancel, accept in North America typically being the cross button and cancel being the circle button, were swapped. So in Metal Gear Solid, for example, the accept button would be circle instead, and cancel would be cross.
That was by design.
What?
Like, the reason that circle, it's a circle and X is an X is because X was supposed to be like back or no, and circle was supposed to be like forward or yes.
Right, exactly. But I think it was adopted the opposite in North America, is because the cross button is kind of, the bottom. It's the default.
Yeah, it's the A
default
button.
So we can thank Xbox for that.
I think a lot of... I mean, I don't know this story for certain, but just reading that makes me think that in Asia, people might be used to that setup. So circle is for okay, and cross is for cancel. So maybe PS4 might be letting Asian players swap it, so they don't have to go into the settings of every game and switch the controls. I don't know.
Yeah, it could also be that
so.
it's saving frames in Tekken 7.
Oh, maybe. Could be that.
Just kind of quickly running through the last couple of little nibbly topics we have here. Apparently, Nintendo is getting VR with Labo. I laugh at that.
Yeah, that's what you want to have on your head.
Cardboard.
Yes. Do you want a VR headset you're gonna have long gaming sessions with? Well, strap this fucking piece of cardboard to your head.
Hey, it worked for Google VR or whatever.
Thanks,
Google
Brandon.
Glass? No, not Google Glass. What is it?
Google Cardboard.
Yeah.
Google Labo.
If you can't watch porn with this thing, it's not going to catch on. Sorry to say, Nintendo.
Yeah. That's the only reason Aaron still hooks up his Vive.
Well, his controllers don't work anymore because he's got them covered in semen.
They don't need the controllers for that.
Ugh. Apparently, apparently there was a Fallout game, like a fan game that was coming out that was been shut down. Kind of going back to Bethesda's, what we were talking about earlier. They shut the game down. It was a player versus player game, or was it a player versus player game?
No.
And what is it?
What is this?
Well, so
I know there's a new pen and paper game coming out.
So a long time
Fallout.
ago, there was a fan pen and paper Fallout game, and they had contacted Bethesda to try and get it, try and make it the official Fallout pen and paper game. Bethesda said no, fuck off. It eventually came out under another name. I think it's called like the Wastelander or something like that. I can't remember the name.
You are correct. It's not Wastelander, but you're correct in the story.
Yeah. And so I think we all joked at the time that, because it makes sense, that Bethesda were planning their own pen and paper game. Well, now it's confirmed. There's a Fallout official pen and paper game coming out next year.
I can't wait for this to have nothing in it and be riddled with microtransactions.
Well, this is kind of an expansion on the Wasteland Warfare miniatures game that they released for Fallout.
Yeah.
A game so good I've never heard of it.
It actually looks really cool. The miniatures are really high quality. It's like it's a co-op game, or a game that you can play by yourself. But I know that seems less fun. You get missions. You know how a miniature game plays, so it plays like that. It's Fallout. It's cool. people always asked why not put out a pen and paper game like this. And
We're too
they're
busy
doing
building
that
the
now.
future of the company with Fallout 76. I don't know why my voice is cracking. Jesus Christ.
No, you just sound like Todd. So,
Wayne Gretzky games.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, this is part of that. This is part of that game series, the Wasteland Warfare thing, and it's compatible with anything that you bought with Wasteland Warfare.
Okay.
Cool.
It seems
Interesting, I
neat.
guess.
There are lots, just so people don't misunderstand, there are lots of other fan pen and paper Fallout games as well, currently
Yes.
available.
Including the one that I was writing and stopped.
Kind of moving on from there, just very quickly, apparently Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which would be Call of Duty 6, is probably getting a remaster, so maybe we'll see that at Activision's not conference that they're having this year.
Dang it.
I'm thinking this is going to be a pre-order bonus, like
Yeah.
the last one was.
Probably fucking Modern Warfare 87 gonna have Modern
would be
Warfare
cool-
2 remaster.
I'd like to see them do like a collection, so like the Modern Warfare games, like a remaster, kind of like the BioShock collection or the Handsome Jack collection. Kind of what like a normal, not scummy company would do. But I guess we're just not going to get that. And speaking of collections, the Master Chief Collection is probably coming to PC. There's been a lot of rumors about this. I don't know how substantial there are, but I know that'd be a really cool thing because I know a lot of people would pick that game up and play the hell out of it on PC. Because I believe that's the first time that Halo 2, 3, 4, ODST, all of them...
Two was on PC, but that was the
Yeah,
last
1 and 2 were on PC. But
was it?
that's it.
Oh, yeah, it was. Well, at least 3 and 4 and ODST and Reach, then. Although Reach is not part of the Master Chief Collection.
No. Why would you release one of the best ones?
So hopefully that's a true thing. And then we'll get PC gamers will get that because I think Microsoft will see a boost in sales of the Master Chief Collection. Speaking of Master Chief Collection, I hope we get to see more from Halo Infinite at this E3, but I'm skeptical because it seems super early in development.
That's not on the list.
No, I just thought I'd bring it up. Apparently, the Disney Vault is closing for good as it preps for streaming service. So, does that mean they're not going to release any more physical media?
I think it means they're not going to be dicks and hide a bunch of stuff in a fictional vault.
Yeah.
A self-imposed vault. I think they'll probably release physical media, but I think all of their stuff will be available on the streaming service. If not,
Which is nice because I would like
eventually.
to own some old, because like a lot of my old Disney movies I have on VHS and I don't have a VHS player anymore, so I would like to go out and get them on like DVD or something just so I can watch them again, because I would like to rewatch Aladdin, because I'll be fucked if I'm giving Disney more of my dollars until The Mandalorian comes out, in which case they will have more of my dollars.
What if it's terrible?
Then they won't have more of my dollars. Speaking
I
of
hope
stream,
this is like $29.99 a month. This stupid scripting thing that they've got. Not scripting thing, streaming thing.
speaking of streaming services and stuff.
Well, before you get too far away from that, what if all brand new Disney movies are available day one? Would you get
that would be cool. Potentially.
If I don't have to sit in a vomit seat at the theater that's covered in child piss, and it reeks.
But then
Actually, that'd probably be
you
worth
miss
it.
out the joy of seeing a child open up a bag of Skittles and then pour them all over the floor in the loudest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, or like the 187-year-old lady sitting right behind us that can't hear the movie, doesn't know what's going on.
Was it Avengers 2 that we went to see
With the
that somebody
vomit?
just vomited on the fucking floor and just left it there?
Yeah,
It was shot off
it's
the
just
wall
a
at 20
big
feet.
steaming pile of vomit on the steps.
The Skittles, I think, are my favorite though, because he spilled like half the bag, and you're just like, shh. And you're like, oh, okay. And then as he goes to adjust it, you just hear, shh. You're like, how did you?
I feel
How did you
I
spill
feel
so
bad
many?
for that kid.
You should.
Poor kid.
But But I think on that note, if it is $20 or $30 a month, then that's totally worth it if you get movies day one, because then you spend almost as much as you would spend at the theaters without having to leave your house, and then you can just cancel your subscription.
That's true.
So
I will kind of on the same vein as of streaming services. Two things. One, and I'll get to this one first before we get to the F1 because I'm assuming Aaron's going to want to talk about that. But there's one of my favorite books of all time is called Good Omens. It's by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. It was one of their first ever novels between the pair of them, and it was before either had become really famous. It's really, really, really good. It focuses heavily on themes of Christian mythology and like the nature of good and evil. And it was announced a little while ago that Amazon was going to turn it into I think a limited series. Because unlike Game of Thrones, there's only one book and it's not that long. And we didn't really see much about it. We got a very short teaser trailer a couple of months ago, but they didn't really show anything.
Teaser.
But we got a full on trailer this week, and it looks really good. Michael Sheen is playing the angel whose name escapes me right now. I think his name is Azrael.
Michael Sheen.
Yeah. And David Tennant is playing Crowley. The devil or the demon in the story. And there's a bunch of I can't explain the plot because it's absolutely fucking bonkers. But it's really good. Check out the trailer. It looks really, really good. But kind of on the same vein of kind of streaming services shows. Apparently, there's a new F1 documentary on Netflix. Aaron, I'm assuming you posted this.
Well, Amazon is already doing American Gods.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is another Neil Gaiman thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, but they're expanding on that story. I hope they don't do that here because this story is very insular and kind of self-contained. And the way it ends is kind of very much like, this is the ending forever and ever. Oh, man.
Right.
Tune in next time.
Yeah,
so there's last year, the people who worked on the Santa documentary, and Amy, I never saw that myself, but the Santa documentary is actually really good. You should watch it. It's a good story. Cool guy. Anyway, those same people that made that worked with the Liberty Media and the people who own Formula One to make a Formula One documentary about the 2018 season. And that is now available as a Netflix original in 10-episode format, which is kind of interesting. If you're like loosely interested in Formula One, then this is a really great kind of digestible, concentrated format of it with all the action and drama kind of accentuated. It's very cool. I like it. It could be better because now all the teams are on board with them doing the documentary, which seems really dumb. So a couple of the teams just kind of aren't mentioned in it, but for the most part, it's a pretty good cross-section of last year. So I recommend you checking that out if you're interested. But I guess we can move on to our last thing.
we're going to see Captain Marvel tomorrow. We were hoping to be able to get to see it before the podcast so we could talk about it. But stuff happened in the week, and we weren't able to do it, and it's been kind of stormy as dicks. So we're going, as of this recording, which is on Friday, we're going tomorrow, so last Saturday, to see it. It's been getting favorably mixed reviews. Most critics seem to enjoy it, but the fan base seems very split on it. I've potentially avoided
every comics, I guess.
Well, yeah. I've avoided every...
The character which they've rebooted like 7 times because everybody hates her.
Well, I like Carol Danvers, especially her most recent in kind of interpretations where she became Captain Marvel. She's a good character. I like her a lot. She's been in some really good stories. I hope that this movie does her justice. And I'm interested to see if Marvel can do a female superhero solo, correct? Because they've shown that they can do like Black Widow and Scarlet Witch and that kind of stuff. Like they're all, as supporting characters or kind of not supporting but kind of deuterotagonists in other Marvel stuff that works. But I'm interested to see if they can pull off, this kind of story with a female lead and a female superhero. Basically, I'm hoping this is as good as Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman was really good. And I hope they get the character correct. But we'll see. I've purposely been avoiding spoilers on this because I want to make my own opinions about this, and I want everything to be a surprise. Because Captain Marvel is one of my favorite Marvel superheroes. She might be my favorite aside from Spider-Man. So I'm really looking forward to this. I don't
Yeah,
know what
we'll
you guys
see.
are thinking. I think Andrew's more skeptical than the rest of us.
I'm pretty skeptical. The whole campaign of this movie has me pretty skeptical. It seems very politically driven as opposed to let's just make a good movie. So that immediately ticks a lot of red boxes for me.
And that's the worst thing that you can do.
That's not how the saying goes at all. It takes a lot of, what am I trying to say? A lot of red flags. There we go. For me.
Raises a lot of red flags.
Yeah, raises a lot of red flags. Thank you, Aaron.
I don't really hold any reservations against it. I haven't really enjoyed the trailers in particular. It doesn't seem like an interesting movie. It seems kind of boring. Regardless of its marketing or whatever, but I'll wait and see what it's like to really sort of give an opinion on it. I think it has the potential to be interesting, and I'm curious to see how they splice her into everything else.
Yeah.
So,
I really hope it's good. I really do.
I hope it's good. I hope it's as good as Wonder Woman is, because I really enjoyed Wonder Woman, even though it had a few flaws, like the last battle.
Yeah, the end of Wonder Woman, not great, but that movie was really good.
Yeah. So hopefully this is Marvel's answer to that. I really hope it works out for them, because I really like this character.
Tune in next week when we're all misogynists for not enjoying this movie.
Nope, we can not enjoy this movie for reasons other than the fact that it had a female lead, and it was focused on a female superhero.
Adam, have you been on the internet in the past?
I have, but
like,
I'm going to try because at the same, while you say that, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman was a great movie, and it starred a female superhero and a female lead. So clearly, it's not. If this movie doesn't do well, it's not the fact that I hate women; it's the fact that maybe the movie wasn't very good, but it might be very, very good.
Even before I know what the movie is like, I will say that I like Brie Larson. So,
yeah,
happy International Women's Day, everybody.
Yeah,
it's Women's Day when we're recording this.
Shout out to my favorite female movie character, Cy Snoodles.
Who the fuck is that?
The alien singer at the beginning in Jabba's palace.
Jesus Christ.
All right, everyone. That's been podcast
Lucas
199. Next episode is going to be a big kind of milestone for us. It's going to be our 200th podcast. So we're really looking forward to that. We got definitely a big surprise coming. I'm just kidding. We're going to be doing the same shit we do every week. We might make a little celebration about it, but we'll see how much energy we have. We're all old.
The surprise is we actually all hate women. For episode 200.
Thank you for tuning in. This has been Adam with Aaron and Andrew. And thank you very much for listening.
Women got no right to be superheroes.
Bye.